Hey all, I'm Apurva and welcome back to WeDesified. Today we are back with one more interesting interview, and this time I'm talking to Sailee Lavekar, a final year PhD student in biology. Sailee is a researcher in neuroscience and stem cell biology and has been recognized with multiple awards so far. We are going to discuss her journey starting from the admission process, PhD interview process, till her graduation plans and so much more. So let's get to it, but before that, if you find our content helpful, then please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your every like, comment and subscription really motivates us to keep making these useful videos. So subscribe to our channel and press that bell icon right now. Welcome Sailee, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us, and I'm sure that this video is going to help a lot of incoming and current PhD students, so thank you so much.
Thank you so much to WeDesified and the team for inviting me. I'm really excited to describe my PhD journey, the application process, and how I got to where I am.
Thank you. So first of all, Sailee, could you please tell me briefly about what you do?
Yeah, so I'm a fifth year PhD student in Dr. Jason Meyer's lab at IU School of Medicine. I'm affiliated with the School of Science at Purdue, getting my degree from IUPUI. And our lab mainly works with human stem cells to differentiate cells of the retina and understand different neurodegenerative phenotypes associated, how you can see in that model system, and also deriving retinal ganglion cells, which are a type of neuron that connect between the eye and the brain that help us to see. So we want to see what mechanisms go into that lead to their damage and death.
So Sailee, tell me, what was your motivation behind pursuing this PhD and how did you decide that this is what you want to do?
Yeah, so when in my formative years, biology was something that came really easy to me. It didn't seem like study, more of like I was very curious to know more about it. So in my 11th, 12th, I pursued biology, and then further in my undergrad, I pursued life sciences, which is like a bucket concept where there's course where there's different subjects in it: botany, zoology, microbiology, you name it. And then I got a chance to do different courses, which helped me hone that skill a little bit more and know a little bit more about biology. I got a chance, I was nominated basically in my undergrad to pursue a course which was with TIFR. It's a big institute back home in Mumbai. And there I got a feel of what different techniques go in a research lab and how there's so much cool research going on, and I got to work with big names in the field. So it was really nice to get that exposure, and that was my main motivation, where I just kept building on it, doing different courses. And then I got a chance to intern basically in two very well-known institutes. One is the Center for Excellence for Basic Sciences, and another is ACTREC, which is a very well-known cancer institute. And that's where I got really good exposure to learn about like being really in a research lab and not just the book knowledge that we usually get, and getting exposure to those things, attending like research updates and doing journal clubs where we basically sit and critique different papers and seeing how people think and how their ideologies go when it comes to doing research. So that was really helpful. Initially, I didn't have any idea as to like, okay, this is how things go. It was harder initially because you're not born with it. It's something that you need to hone over time. And I was really passionate about it. So I was like, I really want to learn this. And if you have that drive, it comes slow and steady. So Rome is not built in a day. So I think that's how you learn, and that was my motivation overall. So the internships helped me a lot to get the practical knowledge behind and how you can hone those skills when it comes to the basic math or like experimental design and how you are hands-on.
When did you decide that you want to pursue PhD? And like, did you always want to come to US to pursue, or did you think of other countries or any country in Europe to like pursue PhD?
Yeah, so one of my main drives to do a PhD was that I always wanted to help people in some way, contribute to the community, and I think definitely research takes a long time to process, but I think this was my way that I felt like, down the lane, 15, 20 years, who knows, maybe I'm not around at that time, but somehow my research would help the community. So this was my main drive, and it has been throughout since I learned about biology. So it wasn't like one fixed time when I thought of doing a PhD, but more of like through my formative years, that's when it just got built up. So to answer your next question, I definitely thought about applying for a PhD in the US, but also in other countries, in the UK, in the European countries. But when it comes to European countries, if you're very confident with your profile, if you have research articles that you can vouch on, European countries are really good because they don't do coursework and they look for research articles before application. And the good part about that is the PhD is super short, so it's like 3 years and you can get done, and you're handed over a project right away when you join, and you're doing research from day one. When it comes to the US, you get a chance, like they look at your holistic profile, so you kind of get a chance that somehow if your profile is lacking in certain aspects, they look at either you have internships or your grades are good, or like you have research exposure overall, so that helps in getting you in. So I think they give you sort of a chance to
Right.
get into a PhD.
That is so true. And if you want to know more about the comparison between the US and UK for PhD, then you can watch this video. So Sailee, coming back, tell me, did you have any papers, research papers before you applied for the PhD program here?
So no, I didn't have any research papers, but one thing that I believe strengthened my profile is the internships that I had. And this is important because not only to strengthen your profile, but it's important because it gives you a feel of how research labs go, and do you think this is the right thing that you want to do, because it can be a commitment when you do a PhD. It's like for 5 years, so you want to be sure that is this something that I want to pursue. And also it gives you a better idea of like the pattern of research and things that go about. You can always talk to people, you can network there in those labs and get an idea of like, okay, what are the things that I need to be aware before doing a PhD. And to follow up also, since I didn't have any papers, I wanted to build my profile a little bit more, so I did different courses. And that was not just to build my profile, but I was very, very curious, and that just happened to build my profile. So I think having these things is really important, not just research papers, but other things like being active with the extracurricular courses that you can do, and also working in, like doing internships.
That's a very valuable advice. And in fact, so many students ask us, about the importance of publishing papers before applying for PhD programs here. So that's why we wanted to address this question. So Sailee, coming back to your application procedure, what was your application procedure like, and when did you start actually applying, and how did you do it?
Yeah, so usually application process for PhD starts 1 year prior. So there are 2 semesters, as we are well aware, fall and spring, and I aim for the fall semester. So the deadlines were in and around November to January, depending upon universities. Some start early on October also, but most of them are in the December timeline. So you have to be prepared beforehand, like 1 year prior, and then there are different like you have GRE TOEFL that you apply to, and you have to get certain cutoffs with the scores. So I prepared for that, and I was doing internship at that time, so it was a little challenging, but it wasn't too bad. I had a good resource access called a GRE IO, and it was really helpful for me because it's made by the students. So I just had a WhatsApp group for that, and they were very strict about just keeping it GRE specific, and we could ask questions there. They would send weekly questions, so you could solve them, and you can always buddy up with someone, and they helped you a lot. So I think that was something that I pursued and helped me during that time. I did my GRE, I did TOEFL, and after that I worked on my SOP, and I really wanted to strengthen that because along with your CV, your SOP is equally important in this process. With the SOP, I would highly recommend being not generic but specific, because it's more of like specific to your own journey. So you want to include points like, example, if you have a certain problem that you have solved, so be more specific at how you solved it, and describe your future goals and things like that in SOP. So be as specific as possible, make it unique to your profile. I think that's my recommendation. And then I worked on a letter of recommendations as well. So that was my overall package of profile.
So then how did you shortlist the universities, and how did you find out which colleges to apply to?
Yeah, so my take on it was a little different because I was more of the mindset that I want to love what I do and be aware of what type of work I'm going to do. So what I did is I had keywords that interested me and the research I wanted to do, and I put that on Google. And then I went to the images, and images usually have figures from research articles. So it shows you what type of work they do. And then you can always, if you see something interesting that kind of matches with your profile and your interests, you can click on it, go further, and then it shows what paper, which institute it is, which lab it is. And then that's how you can kind of backtrack to see which universities you want to apply to. And one more thing that I kept in mind was not just the particular lab that I was interested in, but also looking at other labs that could be in that university. So if they don't have funding or things like that, you can always look at the other labs and apply to them to see if it aligns with your profile.
That is a very interesting approach, and I have never heard anything like this. So kudos to you, Sailee. So Sailee, tell me, what was the admission process like for you?
Yeah, so usually whenever you apply to colleges, after like I would say 4 to 5 months, you hear back from them, and if you usually get accepted to the program first, and then it's like a way that you can approach professors, and professors can approach you as well. And you can go to the department, look at what research they do, and depending on if it aligns with your interests, you can apply to those labs, write a well-informed email to them, and then depending on if they have funding or no, or if they're interested in your profile, they will approach you. So based on one more important thing is that after you approach them and they accept you, you have a informal sort of interview, and that's usually, the interview is really important, which helps to know whether you're accepted or rejected by the lab. So one important thing is being accepted by the department and the university, and second is being accepted by the lab. So both are equally important. So even if you're just accepted to the university, that's not enough. You have to be accepted by a lab as well. Yeah.
Okay, so looks like interview is one of the crucial parts of this admission process. So could you please elaborate more on this interview process? Like, what are the expectations and how does the interview is overall conducted?
Yeah, so my interview was mainly through Zoom because I was back home in India. And the way interviews usually go, they are very, very informal, but at the same time, they want to see how much you know and how much you're interested in their lab. So first of all, it will start with they'll introduce themselves, what work they do, and then they will, based on the experience that you had and based on your CV and SOP, they'll kind of ask you questions regarding what skill sets you have, what experience you've gained, and how much you're passionate when you're describing about these things. So you really have to put it out there that, okay, my research, I really know about it and I'm really passionate about this, and basically describe all of that. And one of my hacks for that, for cracking the interview, is that in a way, if you read about their research, it's pretty simple to do that. You can just go to their lab page, you have their research articles there, and read those abstracts, those papers, and formulate a question that will show that, okay, you've done research for their work and also you're well informed what they do. They'll be describing about it anyway. They won't be expecting you per se to actually know in detail, but it'd be nice to actually formulate a question and let them know that, okay, I've actually done research in your lab. So I think that's definitely very helpful. My interview at IUPUI was really good. It was with 3 different labs, and it was quite informal. They talked about their research. They asked me about my skill sets and the experience that I had, and they gave me an overall perspective of how living in Indianapolis is like, and they also asked me to ask questions. So it was really good, and the main thing that I liked about IUPUI was the diversity that was in the Department School of Science Biology. And one of the main things with that is we have Friday seminars where people from different backgrounds come and give seminars. So that's where I actually got my main thesis project. So I think I really love that about the biology department, and kudos to the great work that they do.
That is very insightful. So Sailee, tell me, what was your funding situation like at IUPUI?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate that I was fully funded to begin with, and that's what I would highly recommend, that go for fully funded PhD, because it's like 5 years, so you don't want to be stranded at any point without funding. So I would highly recommend that. And in my admission letter, basically, they mentioned that I was fully funded with health insurance and everything covered for me for 5 years. So that was really reassuring. And then when I came in, I had to do lab rotations, coursework, and some TAing. Basically, it's lab assistantship. So you lead a lab. That was a little bit of hectic for me, but eventually I got used to it with a schedule when I had a schedule, and managing that slowly became easier. So we also had to do qualifiers, so I had to study for that as well. That usually is at the end of the first year, so that was a little challenging.
Oh yeah, the qualifiers. So how was your experience of the qualifiers?
Yeah, so with the biology department, the way qualifiers are is basically at the end of the first year, and my qualifiers were a bit different. I kind of feel old while saying that, but now the department has changed a little bit. So I'll mention first about how my qualifiers went. We had like a 6-7 hour exam, and it's more of like there are 3 different subjects, and I was rotating at that time in 3 different labs. So we wanted to choose a subject that aligned with all the 3 different labs, and that's what I chose as a subject. And I studied for it, and we are basically given 20 questions, and we have to attempt 8 questions out of that in that 6-7 hours, and basically pass from that. So qualifiers was good. It was not too bad. But after the qualifiers, we also have a prelim exam. With my qualifiers, it was the 6 to 7 hour exam, but now the qualifiers have changed a little bit with the biology department, IUPUI. They have like a research article that they have to write and then sort of defend that. So write a research article, do literature review for it, and then defend it. So I didn't have it back then, like 5 years back, but that's something that's good to know if people want to apply here and get a fair idea of how things go. So for the second year, at the end of the second year, we usually have prelims. So prelims are something which also are important to qualify as a PhD candidate. And in prelims, we usually have to defend a grant. First you write the grant, and then you get approved by a committee for it, followed up with defending the grant, so giving a presentation for that. So that's two main things that are important.
And what is a grant?
Yeah, so when it comes to a grant, you have like a research idea and you need funding for that. And as I'm doing stem cell research, everybody knows it's not cheap, it's super expensive, and it needs a lot of state-of-the-art technology, high throughput screenings, and things like that. So you need funding for that. And there are different grant agencies that fund you for it, and this is a very important skill that you need to have. To need to learn how to write a grant where you have all your aims, your experimental approach, methods, what techniques you're going to use in that, and how you're going to answer those hypotheses that you put forward. So it's important to learn that in the PhD process, and that's why they screen you on basis of that. You definitely get guidance from your mentor for it. So you write the grant based on known grant agencies which you are eligible for, and then your committee, basically you have to defend in front of your committee the grant that you've written. So there they look at how much of the basic science and the questions that you're asking you understand, how much of the experimental approach that you're doing, is it making sense, is it lining up with your skill sets, and how much of it is practical with the resources that you have. So it's very important overall for being a PhD candidate, as well as for your overall growth as a scientist. So that's what grants are in short.
Okay, so you have to write the grant and defend it by the end of second year.
Yes.
Okay, so then what comes next?
Yeah, so by the end of second year, you're done with your qualifiers, you're done with your prelim, and most of your coursework should be done by then as well. And for like the total need for graduation with credit wise is 90. So then after your coursework is done, the remaining credits are research and some seminar depending upon the department. So that's one of the main requirements. So to follow up with that, for graduation, one thing that's important is giving committee meetings every 6 months and giving update of what work you've done, the progress you've made, and basically maneuvering around, if this project is going somewhere, if it's not going somewhere, how we help you to build your profile and get you there where you want to be. And with that, it's also, before that, one of the main things is that even in the lab, you are being improved on every level, because you have research updates, you have journal clubs, you give presentations, so that helps you hone your critical skills. And your mentors and your lab mates are important in this, because they help you see if you're actually looking at research like overall, and if you're growing as a scientist overall, with not just technical wise but also thinking wise, which is definitely very equally important. So these are the things which build you and help you grow in your PhD and build your skill sets overall. And once your committee and your PI are satisfied with the work you have done so far, that's when they will give you a green light. Okay, you're ready to defend, and then you are basically ready to pursue your career wherever you want to go.
That is interesting. So this is so different than how my department works, and I think each department has their own approach. So that is quite interesting to know. So Sailee, tell me, what are the other important things that are required to build your profile?
So one of the important things is like having good fit with the lab. And good fit meaning, like, sometimes even if the research aligns with your interests, sometimes like it's important to see how you gel up with the people and also with your mentor. There should be like open conversation, and there should be progress that's kept in mind. And you need to choose a lab which helps you not only encourage research wise, but also giving presentations, giving posters, going to different conferences. And my PI definitely encourages a lot of that. He encourages to attend different seminars, internal, external, and now through the Zoom world, the world has become really small, so it's really easy to attend seminar anywhere in the world and get good feedback for your own research and know about the ongoing research in and around the world. And conferences are a great place to actually know about the cool research that's going on, and you can meet people who are doing that research. So when you go to these conferences, there are different types of conferences. One is like small and big conferences, and the dynamics work way different in both of them. Big could be overwhelming, but you need to be focused on what your interests are and go to those, because there are concurrent sessions going at the same time. Smaller conferences, it's more of like one agenda given, and you're basically in one room attending those lectures and getting feedback for that. And smaller conferences are nicer in a way that you can talk to the bigger people one-on-one and see if something that you want to work in the future for it. It's definitely a great place to network, and you can always tell them about your research through your posters, promote your posters sort of in a way that, oh, I'm presenting this day, so they'll know about your research and keep you in mind. So whenever there's a time of like looking for postdocs or something in industry that you want to look for, it becomes much more easier, and you know about the well-known names as well. So conferences are a great place for that.
So is that your career plan after PhD, like going for a postdoc?
Yes.
That is quite inspiring, and we will soon come up with a video about Sailee's journey to her postdoc, so stay tuned for that. So Sailee, coming back, what were some of the resources that were really helpful for your journey?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to doing a PhD, there are so many things that you have to juggle, that reading could be something that you have to keep up with, but can be tricky to do. So there are a few resources that I look for when I'm looking for PhD reading, and mainly looking at PubMed, which people are really well aware of, to look at different papers that are coming in. You can put keywords there, and one of the tricks with that as well is, if you want to look at two keywords, you can include a capitalized and, or like a or. So that helps you either include or exclude something, and that's something that not a lot of people know. So that helps shortlist and know specific to what you're looking for. So that's one of the things. And then I looked at Google Scholar also. One good thing with Google Scholar is that if you know the big names in the field, and that's why it's important that I mentioned in the conferences that you need to know these names, is because you can keep up with their work through Google Scholar, and then you can follow them as well and get email updates about that. So it makes your life a little easier to know what research you are interested in, and not just go through all the different research articles that come through. Then I also had, so people must be aware of this, is EndNote and Mendeley, which is like a citation manager. And one thing that they probably don't know about Mendeley is that Mendeley helps you whenever you add your citations in their library. It kind of, if you sync it to your email, it helps you get updates about papers related to your library. So that's also how you can stay up to date. Then there's also one resource called PubCrawler. So that is where you can put keywords related to your research, put the same concept of and or, and then get updates about that depending in the week whenever you are available to read the research. So this is mainly a lot to do with staying up to date with reading and the articles that come and are published on a day-to-day basis. One more thing that has helped me is LinkedIn and Twitter. So the reason why I mentioned, people are well aware of LinkedIn, but Twitter is something that's huge in the scientific community, and there, if you find the right type of people who you are interested in, they post preprints, research articles that are either published or not published beforehand. And one resource that I didn't mention about was bioarchives. So bioarchives is something that you can get preprints for, where if there are certain experiments that are missing, people just put it out there that they're working on this and it's almost on the verge of being published. So either it could be under revision or almost under submission. So that gives leeway to people who have not finished certain experiments but can actually access these articles. So that's what I looked into. And Twitter helps not only with that, but also with if people are hiring, looking for postdocs or PhD positions, you can always look at these or recommend to people if they want to go to a particular lab. If you know what research interests matters to them or they are interested in, then they can always follow those people and stay up to date with that. So yeah, these are the resources that I looked into.
These are very, very, very good resources, and it is going to help a lot of students. So thank you so much for sharing. So Sailee, like we all know that PhD is very stressful. So how did you manage your stress?
Yeah, I'm still learning, but one of the main important things that people point out is the work-life balance that can be harder with PhD. And since I work with stem cells, and I definitely signed up for this, and it's like we work on the weekends also sometimes. It's not a lot, but it's like 1 or 2 hours. So sometimes it could be hard to detach, and they are more like your babies, so you have to take care of them and be like, it's really hard to detach. So one thing that I've learned over time is there are always going to be problems, there are always going to be things to troubleshoot for. So you need to learn to shut down after like a whole day work day, basically after 9 to 5. When you come home, you need to just not think about work. I know it can be trickier, but with habit it gets better, and it just helps you love your work back again the next day. And sometimes even on the weekends, it's important just to shut. Even if the worst thing has happened, it can't be worse than whatever it is. So I feel it's important to shut down and take that break. And the other ways that I relieve my stress is I like to dance. Sometimes I just dance, I make Instagram reels, and I hang out with my friends, and sometimes do photo shoots and things like that. So that helps me like not think about work, not stress about work, and just start loving my work again after that break. So that's how I unravel.
That is a very good advice. So Sailee, finally, what are some of the lessons that you learned throughout this journey, and what are some of the suggestions that you would like to give to the new and current PhD students?
Yeah, so I'm still learning myself too, but I think the certain lessons that I've learned through my journey is the most important thing is scheduling. So I'm like crazy, like paranoid about scheduling. I have like a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly calendar, so that helps me be aware of the different time points, the different timelines, deadlines about awards, or like abstract submissions. And also with your experiments, it's really important to be aware like what needs to be fixed when, and when to do those experiments. So I would highly recommend that. Also something to do with this like being organized, and also just keeping one device for all your data and putting that immediately in the cloud. I have been really bad at that, but I'm still working, so definitely that's something I'll advise as well. And to follow up with the stress that can come with PhD, one thing that's definitely helped me a lot is keeping a vision board. So vision board is more of like, it's just like a simple cardboard, and you have a marker, and what you do is have a professional and personal side. And you don't have, like, with the PhD, you have to be aware that with the PhD you have to live your life as well. So when you are, what I do is on the professional side, not only write what awards I've gotten, but also if I've applied to a simple award, or if I've done like many experiments when I was not doing well but I still worked hard, I put that there. And what I do is I have different stickers, so I just put like the sticker that I like on if I've achieved something or gotten an award, and that keeps me motivated throughout to like be aware, like, okay, in 3-4 months what have I been doing with my research. So even if you got, not only if you just applied to a poster or applied to an award, that's good enough to show that, okay, because these things take time and investment. So I think you need to have that, and that has helped me a lot. And the year I made it, that's the year when I made the maximum progress. So I would highly recommend that to people. Yeah, so one thing that I think people don't realize is, even if like you come to the US, there is definitely a language barrier, and this might sound very funny to a lot of people because, okay, English is, both sides we learn English since our formative years, but there are certain words that could be tricky and are really important, that could mean different things. Example, when I was doing my first committee meeting, the words that I used is like, we wanted to prove something, but then that was too strong of a word, so I was recommended use goals, like these are the goals that I want to use. So this could seem very meager, but it's important when it comes to a scientific community, because you want to, communication is a super important thing in the scientific community and in general in any field. So you want to be particular what words you use, and since English is the dominant language in the US, you have to be aware of this. So I would highly recommend like listening to either podcasts or shows, wherever you go. It doesn't have to be the US, but if you're going to the UK, listen to these podcasts so you kind of get used to the language overall, and then using those right type of words in right settings. And to follow up with that it also makes people comfortable, American people comfortable, that okay, you're using the right words, the right jargon, and overall helps in communicating your research to them better. And to follow up with that even more, one thing that is critiqued a lot when people come to the US is accents. So one thing that actually I would recommend is changing your accent a little bit when you are presenting your data or your research, is because imagine just if you meet someone in India from your region or from your particular state or city, instantly you connect with them when they are talking in a particular accent. So that's how it is, like when you're doing you're explaining your research to someone and you do an American accent, you can try your best. It doesn't have to be exactly, but you can try your best. That helps them to focus more on your research than where you're from. And I think this is the advice that I would definitely give to people. And lastly, I would say is one thing that I really struggled with is mainly being spoon-fed throughout my education, and that was something lacking in my profile. And I learned that whenever you have a project, you need to be aware that you need to take a driver's seat and take authority of your project whenever you're discussing with your PI. Don't rely entirely on your PI or your lab mates. You need to know that that's your own baby, that's your own project, and this is what you want to do. So you need to take the driver's seat, troubleshoot, and then discuss it, rather than just going like, okay, my things are failing, what am I supposed to do? So doing that research as well is equally important, and I would highly recommend that to people as well. And one more thing that I would highly recommend to people as well is, when you're doing a PhD, you need to be aware that you're a student. So you're allowed to make mistakes, you're allowed to fail. So you shouldn't, the imposter syndrome always comes through, but you want to know that you are stronger than that, you're better than that. And that's why the vision board also helps in this, because you're like, okay, you have made progress, and you have to compare yourself to your own journey and not to anybody else. So I think that's what helped me a lot. And I was aware of, you have, whenever it's like your committee or your PI critiques you, you need to be aware that these people are the ones that want good for you. And when you go out there, no one's going to spend so many hours invest in you for that critique. So you need to keep that growth mindset, and that helps you just propel further and get better each day. So these are the most biggest advice that I have for people.
Those are some wonderful words, and I'm sure that the audience which is watching this video right now must be feeling super pumped up. And I can't agree more with whatever you said. Like, the motivation and self-appreciation are two most important things to survive in a PhD program. So Sailee, thank you so much again for talking to us and sharing this valuable information with our audience. Really, really appreciate it, and all the best for your postdoc journey.
Thank you so much, and I thank you to WeDesified and the amazing content that they have. I would definitely recommend to subscribe to their channel, because I wish I had access to all of that 5 years back, so I would definitely recommend that. And for closing comments, one thing I would say is you choose to do a PhD, so it's something that you need to be focused, and if you're passionate, you'll get through it. So that's the last thing I would like to say.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you so
Sailee.
much.
So that's all we have for today. I hope it was useful. We will come up with more such interviews soon. If you find this content helpful, then please like and share this video. And if you have any questions, then you can ask us in the comment section. We will reply and make more videos answering all your questions. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Until next time, take care, keep learning. Bye-bye.